2020.
All right.
The nationwide protests over racism and police violence have prompted a renewed focus on a long-standing debate whether to capitalize the term black. We here at the New York Times have talked to more than 100 staff members. The feedback has been thoughtful and nuanced, mind you, and we've decided to start using uppercase black to describe people and cultures of African origin, close quote. The New York Times capitalizes black, but you don't. Tom Sowell, how dare you engage in this act of defiance?
It is amazing the things that people can focus on. It may seem to be a big issue to the New York Times. I suspect that the people who are being murdered in these big cities like New York and Chicago may have a somewhat different view of the importance of what is capitalized and not capitalized.
Tom, let me read a few single sentences from Social Justice Fallacies. I'll read a sentence, you tell us what you meant. Stupid people can create problems, but it often takes brilliant people to create a real catastrophe.
That is so, my gosh. Think of the catastrophes of the 20th century. You mentioned the genetic determinants. They drew the conclusion from their reasoning that you had to put an end to certain races because they had what they called eugenics, but what was later called genocide. And so that idea originated with the progressives. And there was a progressive who wrote a book with that theme, which was translated into German, and Hitler called it his Bible. And so this Holocaust.
You draw a line from the progressive eugenicists to Adolf Hitler.
He drew the line. He drew the line and wrote a letter, a fan mail letter to the author of that book, and saying that book was his Bible. And we see what that led to. During the 1920s, in reaction to World War I, which was so bad, the idea arose among the intellectual elites that the way to prevent war was to stop arming. You see, so disarmament was the way to avoid a war. No evidence made the slightest impression on them, and they blundered the West into a war that probably would never have happened because the totalitarian dictatorships that started that war were well aware that the United States, Britain, and France had an industrial capacity greater than theirs. And you wouldn't ordinarily attack countries that have greater industrial capacity than yours unless you thought that they were gutless and were foolish enough not to remain armed. And for 3 years of that war, the Axis powers won every single battle the Western democracies lost in Europe and Asia, wherever they fought. In 1942, Winston Churchill made a speech, and he said, we have a new experience, we have victory. And when they won that victory in El Alamein in northern Africa, that was the first battle won by the Western democracies in a war that was already 3 years old. And from that point on, especially when the United States came in and the American productive capacity was mobilized, then it turned around. Today, people who are trying to say we need to disarm in order to have peace don't understand in a nuclear age, you're not going to get 3 years to figure out what's going on. You're either going to be ready on the first day of that war or you're going to lose it.
In politics, the goal is not truth, but votes.
Absolutely.
And why does that matter?
Oh, it matters because if you can get people to believe that their problems are all due to racists, you will get their votes. But if you look at a lot of data on different things, you discover that's not the case. It's very doubtful if all the racists in the country today have half the negative effect on blacks as the teachers' unions have. Because the teachers' unions keep the schools lousy in areas where the people who send their kids to school do not have the option to send them to a private school if the schools are bad.
You make the point that in Harlem, there are charter schools that rent space in public schools. And there are tests. Well, go ahead. You know what I'm referring to?
Yes. In fact, there's a school. I thought the way to figure out the difference between the public school and the charter school, the regular public schools and the charter schools, is to compare them in the same when both schools are located in the same buildings. So you have comparability. It's the same group.
Same neighborhood, same building.
Yeah, so everything. And when you do that, what I found was that the charter school kids in these low-income black neighborhoods passed the math test at a rate more than 6 times as high as that of the public school located in the very same building.
And the main difference between the charter school and the public school
is the public school is run by the teachers' unions. The charter schools do not have unions at all in most cases. One of the most extreme examples was a school that I went to when I was in Harlem. And in that particular school, only 7% of the regular public school kids passed the math test. In the charter school, 100% passed it. They have different levels. Proficient means you've passed, and there's a level above that when you've done more than what is necessary for that. In that particular school, only 2% of the charter school kids scored as low as proficient. The other 98% were in the top bracket above proficient.
Last question here. Last quotation, Tom. One of many things that no individual, no institution, and no society has any control over is the past.
Yes.
Why does that matter?
Because when we talk about groups and we talk about their environment, we usually mean their tangible current surroundings. But of course, all the groups have had different pasts. When the Irish, the Jews, and the Italian immigrants were coming to America, it was common for Italian and Jewish neighborhoods on New York's Lower East Side to be represented by Irish politicians. And why is that? Because if you look at what happened before they ever got to America, you can see that the Irish had reasons to organize in a political kind of way. The Jews and the Italians did not. Their circumstances, it wouldn't have made any difference. And now when they get to New York, they may be living in the same neighborhoods and so forth, and the tangible surroundings are the same, but the whole past of the 3 groups is very different. And even when the Italians and the Jews rise to prosperity, it's in different industries. It's in different occupations.
And the past means that we should never expect groups to end up evenly distributed across
the past. But even such a thing as age, people don't realize some American ethnic groups are a decade older than others, and some are more than 2 decades older than others. So the Japanese, the difference between blacks and white is not the largest difference in the country. The Japanese Americans are higher than the Mexican Americans by an even larger amount. Japanese Americans have a median age of 52. Mexican Americans have it somewhere in the 20s. 52-year-old people make more money than 20-year-old people.
Tom, would you close our discussion by reading a passage from Social Justice Fallacies?
Well, if I still agree with it. Do we want the mixture of students who are going to be trained to do advanced medical research to be representative of the demographic makeup of the population as a whole? Or do we want students with the highest probability of finding cures for cancer and Alzheimer's? Do you want airline pilots chosen for demographic representation of various groups? Or would you prefer to fly with pilots who are chosen for their mastery of all the complex things that increase your chances of arriving safely at your destination? Consequences matter, or should matter, more than some attractive or fashionable theory. More fundamentally, do we want a society in which some babies are born into the world as heirs of prepackaged grievances against other babies born the same day, blighting both their lives? Or do we want to at least leave them the option to work things out better in their lives than we have in ours?
Thomas Sowell, author of some 40 books, including Social Justice Fallacies. Thank you.
Thank you.